What's up, everybody? Aaron English here, and Paige with the English family and the Parenthood Unscripted Podcast, episode number 3. It's a late night session. Kids have gone to sleep, and we're getting this done right now. So
Yes.
yeah.
And tonight, I'm going to interview you.
Yes, Paige is going to be interviewing me tonight.
Even though probably we know 99.9% of the people that listen to this.
Yes.
Some of them are going to be easy questions. Aaron does not know the questions. So some of them are going to be easy. Some of them are going to be harder. So to start off, because we didn't ever really do like an intro for anybody who doesn't know us. How old are you?
I'm 33 years old.
What do you do for work?
I'm an athletic therapist with an OHL hockey team.
What is an athletic therapist?
So it's a sports medicine professional. A lot of people kind of compare us to physios. So we kind of do the rehab side of things like a physio. You do assessments, rehab, return to play. And then we also do emergency on field or on ice care in my case. So any sort of first responder type situations that happen.
Okay. That's the last of the easy questions.
Okay.
First question. We'll start with like parenthood kind of questions. What is the hardest thing about being a dad? Both in like the grand scheme of things and overall fatherhood kind of perspective, as well as like right now. Because like sometimes the right now problems are like easy peasy, they'll pass with time.
Hardest things father currently right now is probably our daughter being in her terrible twos.
She's not that terrible.
She's not that terrible, but like she has sass and she
knows how to use it.
She knows how to use it, and she just like I want to say she does talk back to me, and
she does.
Yeah, she gives out a lot of sass, let's put it that way.
You two almost bicker and argue more than we do.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
Sometimes listening to you talk to each other, I'm like transported 15 years from now because I can picture the same conversations happening between the 16, 17-year-old and her dad.
Yeah, that's probably right now is probably the...
Okay, and what about overall? In fatherhood, what do you think is like the hardest part of being a dad overall?
Time management more than myself, basically. Trying to, obviously before kids, it was like the main concern was time management on myself and you. And now we've added 2 more people to our family and they come before like both of us most of the time.
Yeah, so, and they don't care what our plans are.
Yeah, they don't really care, no.
Okay, so for anybody who doesn't know, with Aaron's job, he travels with the team. So what is the hardest part about having a job that you travel as much as you do now that you have kids?
The hardest part really is being away for that amount of time. I feel like I'm missing out with a lot of stuff, to be honest with you.
Do you think it's like the guilt of not being home though that's harder? Or do you think it's like the actual like missing out on like dinners and trips to the park and like that actual like the time piece of it?
I think a lot of it is time because I think about a lot of the time that time is currency. And you only get so much time with family before they grow up and they move on and whatnot. So I think majority of it is the time. And then I think I do also have a little bit of guilt where I'm away and obviously you're home. It was more so with Addie being by herself.
But we haven't dived into the home with 2 kids really yet.
Yeah, because it was right at the end of the season when everyone was here and my season got cut short. So I've been home since April. So
yes. Okay. Now, this next question. We've had this conversation like as a couple, but if you were to take my opinion out of it, or tomorrow I was to tell you like I don't want any more kids, or I want 10 more kids, like whichever. How many kids do you want? Like if I said I don't want any more children, do you think you'd be disappointed, or do you think you feel like our family would be complete with just us four?
I think as of right now, I would be fine with that.
Okay.
But we've only had Everett for such a short period of time, so it's obviously going to change. Like ideally, I would like to have one more.
Yeah.
But if you said I don't want kids,
like with Addie though,
I wouldn't be upset. I wouldn't be upset right now.
With Addie, like if my, like same kind of question, like, so if I had never told you like I'm ready to try for a second, did you feel like our family was complete with just Addie?
With just Addie, I felt it could be complete.
Okay.
I don't know if I thought it was complete, but if
you were content if that's...
Yes. If you weren't able to have kids anymore, or you didn't want to have kids anymore, then I think I would be...
I will say, this is actually a conversation that we've had like at length multiple times about, cause it's like actually stresses me out because I love being pregnant so much. And what?
Even though it's probably, I don't know, it's not the easiest experience that you've...
It's not, but it's honestly like, I don't know, like the feeling of the kicks, and I love being pregnant. Also, people are so nice to you when you're pregnant, and I love it. I loved being pregnant. Like even working like at the end with Everett, I was like, okay, like I'm pretty done. But I don't know, like I loved the feeling of like just showing up to work with my little baby ready to go. But anyway, back to what we were talking about. It honestly freaks me out, the thought that like, what if we have a third and then I still feel this feeling like I could do it again? I so deeply want to get pregnant and know in my heart, like, this is it. Our family's complete. I'm content to never have that experience again. Yeah. And it stresses me out that I'm just never going to feel that way because... I don't know, how do you take an experience that you love so much and be like, yep, I never want this again?
That's a difficult question.
I know. But with Addie, I did kind of feel the same, where it was like, if something happened that I could not have more children, I did feel fulfilled. Like as a mother, I didn't feel like I was going to be more or less of a mom because I only had one kid versus two kids versus three kids. Like, I felt like a mom. And I felt fulfilled being in that role. Yeah. But I just was curious if you had like...
like I said, I would have been quite okay with it if that was the case that was dealt, or the hands that was dealt to us.
Okay. So. Fair enough. Okay. Is there something that you either feel more pressure about or you're more nervous about raising a daughter versus raising a son? Do you feel more pressure in your role as a dad having a son or with a daughter? Or do you feel the same amount of pressure just about different things?
Obviously, there's different aspects to different genders, right? I don't know. I feel like... I think we actually talked about this. We talked about this the other day. The way that I portray myself onto Addie is going to probably affect her in the way that she has relationships with men when she's older. Right? So I feel like that is more of a bigger deal than I feel like raising a boy, because if I'm raising a boy, I'm hoping that he kind of follows in my footsteps, right? So
Yeah, but that's exactly it, though. So the way that you treat me,
It's-
or the relationship that you show me,
it's
and
the
the relation.
same, but it's the same but different.
You're right, it is.
Because like I feel more, I want to say stressed about it, or more pulled towards my daughter versus my son.
Like the
in that
love
case.
that she's going to accept. Because with
Yeah.
Everett, it's the love that he'll give. Versus with Addie, it's more so that like how he's going to accept,
Yes.
or how she will accept love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Ooh. What is your favorite quality about yourself as a dad? What is, I don't know, like your best, like if you were going to compliment yourself as a dad, what's one thing that you're like, oh yeah, I got this?
Overall, patience. Obviously not recently, but I want to say that being patient with kids has been my strong suit. Obviously, patient with a lot of people has been my strong suit. So.
Yeah, you're a pretty patient person just in general.
And when I get upset or when I get angry, I've been pushed to the limit.
Yeah.
Obviously, external stuff has pushed me to the limit. So.
Okay, this kind of leads into another question I have for you. Like, obviously, I go through a lot in the postpartum phase. And, like, whatever. Like, I'm definitely more emotional and I'm definitely more sensitive. I know this and I recognize this about myself. But in the postpartum period, because, like, obviously, anytime you have a baby, it's a huge shift. It doesn't matter, I don't think, whether it's your first kid or your 12th kid. Like, it's a huge dynamic shift in a family, bringing in a whole other human being.
Yeah.
What do you think is the thing that you struggle with the most in the postpartum period as the dad?
Sometimes I feel that I'm not doing enough.
Like, in what way?
I don't know, just I could do a little bit more for you, or I could do a little bit more for Addie or Everett, and there's always that feeling of, am I doing enough? Or am I enough?
Mm-hmm.
Type of deal.
Okay.
That's kind of how I feel.
Now, I have a... This is not on here. This is like personal question here. Just because this is, as we have been navigating the postpartum, and as we've talked about before, it's not necessarily the bright, shining moments of our relationship. Do you ever feel like when you feel like that, it would benefit us, like you and I, as a couple, to have discussions about that? Like in the moments where you're like, am I doing enough? Have you ever thought like maybe it would be beneficial to say like, hey, could I be doing something more?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously it could be beneficial, but then I overthink. I think anyone would overthink something in that regards. Like, am I doing enough? Do I talk? If I talk, am I going to get upset? Is Paige going to get upset? Or I overthink things quite a bit in that regards.
I know, but we've had this as a discussion before, that sometimes I feel like you need to take the reins, start the difficult conversations. Because it's funny because I feel like you're such a peacekeeper, but you're actually also such a stirrer. Like, when I watch you interact with like your side of the family,
Yeah.
You love pushing people's buttons.
Yeah, that's where Addie gets it from.
Well, honestly, part of me does wonder whether that's why you're that little bit quicker to like nitpick with her.
Mm-hmm.
But with me, you are not like that. Like, even with me, you're a peacekeeper. Like, you've told me that when we've, like, started to have arguments or whenever you, like, ask yourself internally, if this is going to matter in 5 years,
Yeah.
I'll duke it out. And if it's not going to matter in 5 years,
Doesn't matter.
So be it. Yeah. So you are such a disturber with, like, your side of the family, but with basically everybody else, I feel like you're, I mean, obviously I don't see you, how you interact, like, at work.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I feel like you're such a peacekeeper. So I feel like, anyway, I feel like it'd be beneficial for you to start those conversations. And I feel like you don't, because you are trying so hard to keep the peace.
Yeah.
But it almost backfires on you.
I feel like I take it personally, and I shouldn't. So.
Take what personally?
If I end up talking or saying something and you get upset or I get upset, obviously I'm taking it personally, and I shouldn't be taking stuff personally. So
I know, but then we end up getting into arguments because
we don't talk.
Yeah, like, I feel like we'll both walk on eggshells for, like, however long before I, like, blow up. Like, I definitely am the less patient person out of the two of us.
Yes, you are.
Okay, well, anyway. Next question. This is about me, but what is your favorite quality of me as a mom? And obviously it is not my patience.
Your devotion to our family, the amount of, like, effort and passion that you put into our entire family.
That's so nice.
It's just like, you don't see it every day, obviously, and you do anything for any of our children, obviously me as well. So
yes, I would. Okay. What is one life lesson you hope to teach our children, and one quality you hope to give our children?
I think we've talked about it, I think the quality, I think having the patience with a lot of people, especially in this world, a lot of people are very quick to responding to a situation, or people don't like to step back and evaluate what the situation is happening.
There's power in the pause.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Patience, again, having that with all walks of life. And then obviously being open and honest with everyone that you love, everyone that you don't love, everyone that you come in contact with, because people don't like being lied to, right? So I think I'm still working on being open and honest with you, with my coworkers, with my entire family and friends. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think is going to help them along the way, being open and honest with people, and then caring and just having patience.
Patience is a big one.
Yeah.
Okay. My phone keeps locking me out. Okay. What does it feel like? This kind of goes into, like, the postpartum and whatnot. What does it feel like being the spouse of the person who's in labor? Like, going back to, like, birth, labor, like, in the hospital. What does that feel like for you? Because I think you and I have very different opinions of like mentally what's going on in those moments.
Like obviously with Addie's birth, labor, whatever you like to call it, it was, I don't want to say traumatic, but it was quite difficult for me where I thought that I would be okay with it, with obviously being in situations that I've been in and watching you go through the pain that you've gone through. It was not nice, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It was not a great experience.
So just so everyone knows, when I was pregnant with Addie, maybe a week or two before I went into labor, I asked Aaron, I said, have you done any prep for my labor? And he looked at me like, what prep would I have done?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know, it's not going to be easy to watch the person that you love be in pain for potentially a really long time. And have you done like any kind of like preparation to just like emotionally and mentally prepare for what that's going to be like? And Aaron's response to me was, it's labor. It's supposed to be painful. I'll be fine.
Yeah. And I think I also like in my profession, and obviously in your profession, you probably get it too, but I see a lot of weird injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a lot of people go through life-threatening stuff, career-ending things, lots of pain, lots of gore sometimes. And I think I was just like, yeah, I'm ready. I've seen a lot of stuff.
It is so different though.
It is completely different.
Like, as soon as it's someone that you care about, I mean, I knew this from when like my grandma was really sick and it was like all logical. Like, I'm a nurse. I have watched countless people die, honestly. And when she was palliative, like it was like all logical knowledge left my brain.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Addie. Like anytime she's gotten like hurt or been in a situation that it could have been much worse than what it was, it's like my mom brain kicks in and it far outweighs the nurse brain.
Yeah.
But I don't think you were prepared for that.
No, I was definitely not prepared.
Okay. Now what about Everett?
Everett's one. I feel like I was just so traumatized from the first labor pregnancy that I was just like, I hope this goes quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope she's not in the same amount of pain that she was this time around, because I did not want to go through that again.
Yeah, which I find really interesting because, I mean, I guess it makes sense if you felt like, you know, you felt the way that you did about Addie's, why you would have been a little bit more standoffish with Everett's. But when I think back on my labor and delivery with Addie, I really think about like how you were there. You were so supportive. Like, I feel like you don't think you were, but you were. Like, I did labor for a long time before we moved to a C-section. And like, you did a lot of like physically supporting me, mentally supporting me. Like, you put in a lot of work that day. And so when I look back, that was like so important to me. Like, that was so special. And I actually really regret not asking someone to like take some pictures of us, because I can remember bouncing on the birthing ball when I was in labor with her, and you were just like holding me and helping me like through contractions. And I can remember like even in that moment, even though I was in so much pain, like I can remember thinking that like the love I had for you in that moment was I don't know, like, I feel like it's not the kind of love you can have for someone if you haven't gone through an experience like that together. And I just remember being so appreciative of you, and like I just felt like my love grew for you like tenfold that day. And then even more the following days when you like literally had to take care of me and help me like shower, like clean myself. Like I felt useless, and I just felt like you were so involved and helpful. And then with Everett, you were so standoffish, and I only labored for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
I guess
And you didn't even go through
4.
what you went through the last time. Like, you didn't even get, you got to, you were starting to feel the contractions by the time you had decided, or they had decided
Well,
that it was time.
I think that
But
also,
like last contraction, obviously you had last pregnancy, you had a failed epidural,
yeah,
but you were completely, there was a point where we were trying to put you on all fours and you couldn't feel your upper body, you couldn't feel your lower body.
yeah,
And there was me on one side supporting you, another midwife supporting you on the other side, and then the other midwife trying to coach you
like
through
counter
stuff.
pressure and
Yeah.
stuff too.
So,
Yeah, well, and like with Addie, even with the epidural, like I puked in the OR because of the pain.
yeah,
And I never got to that point with Everett.
no.
Although I do feel like with Everett, it just goes to show you like what a mental game laboring is. Because I didn't want to stall out labor. If I was going to progress, I didn't want to do anything to stall out my labor.
Yeah.
And so when we got there, I was having contractions. Maybe not right when we very first got there, but like as I was laboring, like once we got into like a labor and delivery room, I was having contractions like every 5 minutes, and they were lasting like a minute long.
But you were having a lot of like Braxton Hicks prior to Everett. I felt like you were doing a lot. Like you had obviously Braxton Hicks with Addie, but I feel like you were having like these contractions.
Yeah, but I just mean like
prior.
When I was laboring with Everett, like as soon as we got into a room, like I was having like the contractions every 5 minutes.
I mean, you were also further along
lasting
too,
a minute,
right?
whatever. Yeah, but my point is that I like mentally was okay with the pain.
Yeah.
Until they checked me and the decision was made to go to a C-section, and it was like,
let's go.
As soon as the decision was made, okay, we're going for a C-section.
The pain was like, oh my God.
Honest to God, the pain felt 12 times worse.
It's like
as soon as it was
mind over matter.
But this is what I'm saying. Like, it just goes to show you what a mind game labor really is. Because when I, in my head, was thinking like, okay, like I'm progressing, I'm laboring on my own, like I'm having regular strong contractions, like they were monitoring them on the monitor, and like the midwife said like they look good.
Yeah.
And so in my head I was like, I was in the game. And I was so focused, and I was just like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then the second that they were like, no, man, you're not doing this. Yeah. I was like, okay, take this pain away. Yeah. It's too much.
I feel like I obviously don't want to compare sports to labor, but I feel like that it's like an athlete mindset. Like you could be playing the game and you could be like a broken leg or a broken wrist, and you'd be like, okay, just tape it up. We'll figure it out at the end of the game.
It's the adrenaline.
And then all of a sudden at the end of the game, you're crying and you can barely move your fingers. And yeah, I want Advil and Tylenol and give me the drugs. But yeah. I feel like it's very much so like an athlete mindset where you'll do anything to obviously get a positive result. But then once that competition is over or that period is over, you're just like,
see you later.
Yeah.
Yeah. But kind of going back to my question, is there anything like the way you look at me now, do you feel like you look at me and think differently of me after going through that experience with me? Or do you feel like it's like kind of one of those things, like comes, it happens, it's done, whatever?
Obviously, I wish I would have been more involved this time around. But no, I don't think it's like it comes and goes, and I don't think so, no.
Okay, so do you feel like you think differently of me now than before I had children?
I think of you more, and like it's more of a positive thing. This
is what I mean. I don't mean like a negative. Well, maybe.
I think that you're a very strong woman for what you've done, especially giving birth to 2 children. And
it doesn't gross you out that you were on the wrong end of a cervical check?
No.
Okay.
That's not.
Do you think you would have felt differently, like, if I had been able to have a successful VBAC this time or a successful vaginal delivery with Addie? Do you think you would have felt differently, like you would have felt more like, wow, she's so strong, look at what she just did, versus me having a C-section?
No.
I mean, it's hard to compare because we've never...
I know, but I feel like no matter the way that the pregnancy ended up, I feel like it would have been the same outcome.
With how you felt?
Yeah.
Okay. Just curious.
You creating babies in your body is a crazy feat.
I mean, babies...
in itself.
Babies are literally a miracle.
Yeah.
Like, when you really stop and think about, like, how...
Everything's way too perfect to be coincidence.
Exactly. And, like, it goes to, like, I mean, we've had this conversation that it's crazy to me that, like, I mean, you spend... I won't necessarily specify an age, but you spend a lot of time being like, oh my God, I'm going to get pregnant if I'm not careful.
Yeah.
And then you go to try to have a baby and you're like, this is not as easy as you think it is.
No.
Like, you go through your teens, your early 20s, whatever, like, thinking like, I'm going to have sex one time unprotected.
Yeah. You're going to get
pregnant. And I'm going to have a baby. And then when it really comes down to it, you're like, oh, well, no. Takes a lot of time and effort to make a baby. I mean, effort didn't take as much, but there's a lot of effort put into making Addie.
Yes.
Anyway, I was just curious because I do feel like, I don't know. Not that I view myself differently, but I do feel like I would have more of like a feeling of like, wow, I'm so strong if I'd had a vaginal, which I realize is kind of silly because, like, I mean, you can have an epidural and a vaginal delivery and whatever, and, you know, but like
I feel baby coming out.
And really. Yeah, you don't, whatever.
It really doesn't matter to me.
But then, like, I also literally had, what is it, like 7 layers of my body sliced open. What was that? Oh, 7 layers of my body just like sliced open to have a baby come out. And then I went home like 24 hours later.
Yeah.
And like with Everett, I came home to resume life. Like, we were walking up and down the street, taking Addie out, doing whatever. And even with Addie, I mean, we were still in the hospital, but I was discharged after 24 hours. I was still kind of fending for myself.
Yeah, like that by itself. I'm not, like, you can push a baby out, whatever, but like having major surgery, slicing up your abdominal region, taking a baby out, and then 24 hours later, you're up and walking and having to fend for
literally keeping another human being alive.
Yeah. That's, like I said, it doesn't really matter what.
I know, but that's just like not typically the way that I think about it.
I know, that's your perspective.
I know.
That's not mine.
I've been thinking a lot about this. What makes me feel this way? And I have some theories.
Well, I have some theories too.
I think my theories are starting to align with yours.
Yeah.
I come from a family of strong women who love to deliver their babies unmedicated and
Yes. Route 1.
a few of them at home.
Yeah.
And I think just like in my head, that's just like the way that I pictured birth had to be. Is that where your theory was? Okay, yeah. I'm going to work on that for before we have a third. So that hopefully I don't cry myself to sleep quite as often about another C-section if that happens.
Yeah.
Okay. What is some advice you would give to be a soon-to-be dad or a soon-to-be dad of 2? What's your best dad advice?
I feel like if you did all your preparation and stuff like that, or if you didn't, I feel like the number one thing is being able to just adapt to what comes at you, really.
Yeah.
Don't stress over things that it didn't go to plan or it wasn't perfect or whatnot. Like, stuff happens and you have to...
Roll with the punches.
Yes. You have to be able to keep your head on a swivel and make sure that you can adapt and move forward. That's, I would say.
I will say, I mean, that is decent dad advice, like overall. I will say though, in the early days, as a mom, this is what I would suggest to a soon-to-be dad. Compliment your lady often.
Yeah.
Tell her what a great job she's doing. And one thing that you actually have done this time, because we've talked about how, like, with me breastfeeding, there's not really a whole lot that you can do to help.
Yeah.
But one thing you actually did do this postpartum that you didn't really do with Addie, but I actually really appreciated it, was in the very early days when I would get up to feed him, you would get up too, but you would just come out to make sure that I had everything I needed. So like I would come out with him, I would like change his bum and sit down. And while I was doing that, you'd be making sure that I had like my bottle of water, I had like the Roku remote, I had anything that I might need
Within an arm's reach.
Within an arm's reach. And that actually was super helpful. And that is something that like, because it is so hard, like my mind is so focused on like getting him comfortable and content in those moments that I'm not necessarily thinking, I'm really thirsty, I need this, I need that, whatever. And you were really good about like if I didn't have my phone, making sure I had that, all those things. And that I actually did really appreciate that this time. So I hope if and when we do have a third that you do that again, because that was actually really nice. And you did it during the day too, but yeah. I really noticed it in the night feeds. It actually was really nice that you'd like get up and do those things and then just go back to bed. Because I don't need you to stay up with me, but it was nice to feel like I still had that like support behind me. Okay. I don't have that many more questions. The next few are going to be about marriage, though. Okay. First question. I'm like fishing for compliments here tonight. When did you know you wanted to marry me? Was there a specific moment that you're like, I'm going to marry her? Or was it more of like a over time?
There was a moment, but it was over a short period of time.
So when was it? Tell me about it. Pump my tires a little bit here.
It was like, I want to say it was a couple months after we had started dating, obviously, and I think it was shortly after we went ring shopping for your brother.
Not for me.
No. I remember the day, oh, we're going to go ring shopping for Scott. Do you want to come? Sure. And we picked out the ring that you liked that day.
Yes. Yes, we did.
Yeah. I think it was shortly after that I was like, I could potentially see this girl being my wife, to be honest with you.
I think I knew before you then.
Yeah, probably.
Because I think it was probably right in and around that I was like, I'm going to end up marrying this guy. I don't really even know that it wasn't necessarily anything that you did. I think it was just the way that you were that day that I was like, oh, this is going to be really serious. Okay.
And I did take the number down of that ring. And
yeah.
the card. And then I actually went back when I was going to propose to her to get that ring. The ring had been discontinued, but they also made a different, it was
very similar.
It was a very similar ring. So yeah, ended up going back to the place and getting that ring.
Okay. What is the best marriage advice you have ever received? Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah. That's probably, I don't know, like a lot of people I haven't really talked to much people about.
But like you've never
marriage,
heard
per
like
se.
your parents talking about things or like for me, one thing that I can honestly say has stuck out to me as I grew up and like into my adulthood and into our marriage is, my nose is so itchy tonight, is like my mom, I mean, my dad is a man of few words, but my mom, I have like heard her talking about this more than once where it's like, you have to like stick it out through the hard times out of one season before you're making any like big decision. And this does kind of go into like what we talked about on the last episode where it was like the hard seasons feel so hard in the moment, but then you come out of them and you feel so much
like stronger.
Yeah, you do feel so much stronger for having like conquered that season, and like you know that other challenges are going to come your way, but it's like knowing like, okay, we survived this, so we can survive this next challenge or whatever. And it's like, I don't know, she was just always very big about being like, you know, you got to try, put in the effort for a good amount of time before you're deciding that this is not worth it anymore. And I mean, obviously it has worked for my parents because I mean, they've been married for a long time. They definitely have faced some challenges,
adversity
throughout their marriage. And like they've had like, I mean,
they come out the other side, okay.
And like they genuinely like each other. I mean, I can remember being a teenager being like, oh my God, what are you guys doing? Like, and they just didn't, I mean, kids are perceptive.
Yeah.
There was definitely times in my childhood, teen years, whatever, that it was very obvious that they were going through a rough season. But I mean, they did make it out the other side. And like, I mean, we all tease my mom like a lot, including my dad. But like, I think they actually like they're like genuinely friends.
Yeah.
Like they enjoy spending time together.
Yeah.
They do drive each other genuinely crazy.
Yeah.
But I think for as crazy as they drive each other, I do think that they genuinely enjoy spending time together too. So it's worked. But do you feel like your parents ever were like, listen?
No, my parents were not, I don't know, they didn't really talk to me about it. Other than my mother always saying, treat others as you would like to be treated. So
I mean, yeah, I guess that kind of falls into every avenue of life.
Yeah, like you, especially your best friend, you obviously want to treat them the way you would like to be treated, right? So you're my best friend and I don't want to jeopardize any sort of thing with you, right? So
is there any marriage? What would you give to someone getting married? Like, what marriage advice would you give?
I'd say don't sweat the small things. Like we've talked about, like I always evaluate things in my head, especially when we get into fights and whatnot. And I think, is this really going to matter in 5 years from now, or even a year from now? Or is it not going to? I feel like is the big thing, because people can hold grudges for a very long time. And then that's like the whole thing about taking it personally, right? Like, if you can't be open and honest with your best friend without them taking things personally, like, I don't know, like,
Yeah.
that's...
I will say that when you told me that you do that when we're having like little tiffs, I did actually like take that to heart. And I feel like I try to do that sometimes. I'm not always very good at it, but I do try. And another good one, I'm answering your question. I'm answering my own question. But I remember one time I used to work at the Gap, for anybody that is not aware. And I was talking to a girl that I worked with at the Gap, and she was talking about how, like, if your best friend is really your best friend, you're not like walking around talking smack about them.
No.
And if you're with someone who's going to be, you know, a potential spouse, or they are your spouse or whatever, that person's probably like your best friend. And so why are people so quick to talk smack about their spouse, but you wouldn't say those things about your best friend? Yeah. And that was another one that like really stuck to me. And I know I get teased sometimes because I do really try to like talk you up. Like if I'm talking about you to other people,
I'm the same way.
It's usually like very positive.
Like I've never, even when we're having a fight or whatnot, I would never say anything.
Yeah, like
I think it's stupid, to be honest with you.
I feel like the only times that I've ever like talked about like, and I wouldn't even say it, it's not like I'm like, I don't know, it's not like I'm talking smack about you, but it's more like if I'm having a conversation with like good friends, and they'd have to be like a very good friend, like someone that I trust.
So you're all trying to relate.
Yes, and if a conversation of like this is something that we're struggling with, and it's like, listen, like we've been there. Like I saw a couple friends, I don't know, like a month ago, and we were talking about marriage, postpartum, and just some of the challenges that do come up, and it was like the common themes, like, and this has happened a couple times with a couple friends now, where it's the things that you and I have struggled with, they are too. And so sometimes I think that it's just like a, hey, like this is totally normal because we've been there, yeah. Do, versus me do not do that. Yeah. And I try very hard, if I'm going to talk about you, to make sure that it's like in a very positive light, because I want people to know that I respect you. And I think that's like decent advice. And it's honestly harder than you think it should be. But I think that's all my questions. Okay. I'm honestly proud of myself for only answering one of them myself.
I'm very proud of you too.
I really thought I was going to take over and ramble the whole time again. Oh, all right. Okay, that's it.
It's after midnight and we're going to...
I have to pump.
Yes, you got to do a little bit of pumping. So we're going to end the episode here. Hope you enjoyed the interview to me on a dad's perspective. And if you're watching on YouTube, obviously subscribe to the channel, like, comment down below if you're a dad. Let me know your thoughts. And
I just thought of another question, but we can talk about it another day.
We'll talk about it another day. Have a good night, everybody.